Now the today's topic is the sole of the foot. The part of the foot that meets the floor is termed the sole of the foot. The structure of the sole of the foot is similar to that of the palm. Now the skin of the sole presents some features. It is thick and hairless. It is firmly bound to the underlying deep fascia that is known as plantar aponeurosis by numerous fibrous bands. It is creased and it contains large number of sweat glands. The superficial fascia is mostly composed of subcutaneous fat with the meshwork of fibrous septa which anchor the skin with the underlying deep fascia. The skin of the sole of the foot is supplied by three cutaneous nerves which arise directly or indirectly from the tibial nerve. Medial calcaneal branches Medial calcaneal branches of the tibial nerve arise directly from the nerve and supply skin over the posterior and medial portions of the sole. Now, cutaneous branches of the medial plantar nerve. They supply the skin over the larger anteromedial portion of the sole and medial 3.5 digit. Cutaneous branches of the lateral plantar nerve. They supply skin over the smaller anterolateral portion of the sole and lateral 1.5 digits. The deep fascia. Now these are the dermatomes of the skin. L4 from medial to lateral, L4, L5 and S1. The deep fascia in the region of the sole consists of three parts: central part, medial part and lateral part. The central part of the deep fascia is very thick and is termed as plantar aponeurosis. Now this plantar aponeurosis is the thickened central part of the deep fascia of the sole. It is triangular in shape and occupies the central region of the sole. The apex of the plantar aponeurosis is attached to the medial tubercle of the calcaneum. The base of the plantar aponeurosis near the heads of the metatarsals divides into 5 bands, one for each toe. At the point of division, the 5 processes are bound by the transverse fascial fibers. The digital nerves and vessels pass through the intervals between the processes. The function of the plantar aponeurosis are: it firmly fixes the skin of the sole, it provides origin to the muscle of the first layer of the sole, it protects the plantar nerves and vessels from compression, and it helps to maintain the longitudinal arches of the foot by acting as tie beams. Now, muscles of the sole of the foot. There are 18 intrinsic muscles and 4 extrinsic tendons in the sole of the foot. The muscles of the sole of a foot are in 4 layers from superficial to the deep. Now, neurovascular plane of the sole. There are 2 neurovascular planes between the muscle layers of the sole. Superficial neurovascular plane lies between the first and second layer, and deep neurovascular plane between the third and fourth layer. In the superficial neurovascular plane lies the trunks of medial and lateral plantar nerves and arteries, and in the deep neurovascular planes lies the deep branches of the lateral plantar nerve and artery. Now first layer of the muscles are flexor digitorum brevis, abductor hallucis, and abductor digiti minimi. Second layer of the muscles are, these are the flexor digitorum accessorius, four lumbricals, two tendons. These are the tendons of flexor digitorum longus and tendon of flexor hallucis longus. These are the muscles and tendons of the second layer. Now third layer of the sole consists of three muscles. These are the flexor hallucis brevis, flexor digiti minimi brevis, and adductor hallucis. These are the muscles of the third layer. And the fourth layer consists of interosseous muscles, dorsal interosseous and plantar interosseous, tendon of tibialis posterior, tendon of the tibialis posterior muscle, and tendon of peroneus longus. So these were the muscles and tendons of the four layers of the sole. Now plantar nerves. There are two plantar nerves, medial plantar nerve and lateral plantar nerve. Medial plantar nerve, it is a large terminal branch of the tibial nerve and begins deep to the flexor retinaculum. It passes forwards between the abductor hallucis and flexor digitorum brevis. It is accompanied by the medial plantar artery on its medial side. It gives muscular branches to the four muscles that are abductor hallucis, flexor digitorum brevis, flexor hallucis brevis, and first lumbrical by the second digital nerve. Now cutaneous branches from the medial plantar nerve are four digital nerves which supply the skin of the medial 3.5 toes and larger medial part of the sole. Each digital nerve also supplies dorsum of the terminal phalanx. The articular branches supply the joints of the tarsus and metatarsus. Now distribution of medial plantar nerve in the sole corresponds to the distribution of median nerve in the hand. Now lateral plantar nerve. It is the smaller terminal branch of the tibial nerve and it also begins deep to the flexor retinaculum. It also passes deep to the flexor retinaculum. It appears in the sole deep to the abductor hallucis. It passes forwards and laterally to the base of the fifth metatarsal in between the first and second layers of the sole of muscles. On reaching between flexor digitorum brevis and abductor digiti minimi, it divides into the superficial and deep branches. Superficial branch and deep branches. Branches from the main trunk give cutaneous to the lateral part of the sole, muscular to the supply the two muscles abductor digiti minimi and flexor digitorum accessorius. Branches from the superficial part divides into two branches, lateral and medial. The lateral branch supplies three muscles, flexor digiti minimi brevis, third plantar interosseous and fourth dorsal interosseous. It also supplies the skin on the lateral side of the little toe. The medial branch of the superficial division communicates with the median plantar nerve and supplies the skin of the fourth cleft. Branches from the deep branch, it courses medially, lying between the third and fourth layers of the sole. It supplies 9 muscles: abductor hallucis, 3 lumbricals, that is the second, third and fourth lumbrical, and 5 interosseous muscles of the first 3 intermetatarsal spaces. Now plantar arteries. There are 2 plantar arteries, medial plantar artery and lateral plantar artery. Medial plantar artery is the smaller terminal branch of the posterior tibial artery. It arises below the flexor retinaculum and appears in the sole deep to the abductor hallucis, accompanied by the median plantar nerve on its lateral side. It terminates on the medial side of the big toe by dividing into 2 branches. A small branch which passes distally along the medial side of the big toe and anastomoses with the digital branch of the first plantar metatarsal artery on the lateral side of the big toe. A large branch which splits into three superficial digital branches and anastomoses with the first to third plantar metatarsal arteries. It gives muscular branches to the adjoining muscles, cutaneous branches to the medial side of the sole, and digital arteries. Now, lateral plantar artery is the larger terminal branch of the posterior tibial artery. It arises under the flexor retinaculum and runs forwards towards the base of the fifth metatarsal. The lateral plantar nerve lies on its medial side. At the base of the fifth metatarsal, it curves medially with concavity facing proximally and runs towards the first interdigital space to join the dorsalis pedis artery and thus forms the plantar arch. It gives muscular branches to supply the adjoining muscles, superficial branches to supply the skin and fascia, anastomotic branch to anastomose at the lateral border of foot with the lateral tarsal and arcuate arteries, and calcaneal branch is occasional to the heel. Sometimes it gives calcaneal branch to the heel. Now, what is plantar arch? Plantar arch is an arterial arch formed by the direct continuation of the lateral plantar artery from the base of the fifth metatarsal bone to the first intermetatarsal space. It is completed medially by anastomosing with the terminal part of the dorsalis pedis artery. It extends from the base of the fifth metatarsal bone to the proximal part of the first intermetatarsal space. It lies between the third and fourth layers of the sole. It is convex distally across the bases of the fourth, third and second metatarsals. It is accompanied by a deep branch of the lateral plantar nerve which lies in its concavity. Now, this plantar arch gives 4 plantar metatarsal arteries. They pass forwards in the intermetatarsal space and end by dividing into a pair of plantar digital arteries. Near their points of division, each plantar metatarsal artery gives a distal perforating branch to join the corresponding dorsal metatarsal arteries. It also gives 3 proximal perforating arteries. They ascend through the proximal parts of the second, third and fourth intermetatarsal spaces and anastomosis with the corresponding dorsal metatarsal arteries. The passages for proximal and distal perforating arteries are called windows of the soul.